We begin with a proper How's Your Mother from Sunday afternoon. Swansea City 3, Leeds United 4. Leeds coming from behind twice in this one. They then go ahead to make it 3-2. Swansea get an injury time equaliser, but then Leeds go straight up the other end and get the winner. Big box of cliches time, Justin. What an advert for the Championship.
It was incredible. It was incredible. I know we were just talking about the weather and Stormbird doing its business, but I felt like this was a game where the conditions really, really made it. You know, it was a wet, zippy surface, brought an element of chaos to the game. I think there were two extremes with weather like this. The games are really dull and boring and shit, or it's just utter carnage where it's back and forth and big tackles and loose touches. And as I say, I just thought the conditions really added to both teams really going full pelt here, because it's that sort of game where the surface gets zippy, it gets a bit mad, it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, the rollercoaster of narratives in this one, Justin. When Leeds got the third, I was thinking, this is why we keep saying Leeds to win the league this season. And then the equaliser goes in and I'm thinking, oh, Leeds are falling apart again. And then the Leeds winner, and I'm thinking, I bloody love this league. I mean, it was good going from Swansea, to be fair, scoring 3 in this, considering they had only scored 3 in their previous 8. But they gave Leeds a really good game here, didn't they? Certainly bloodied their noses in the first half. But then Leeds really took control in the second. Swansea didn't have a shot in the second half until the 79th minute. And then all of a sudden, the final 10 minutes plus injury time broke out into a basketball match, and I could not take my eyes off the screen. It was an unbelievable game, and the scenes for Willie Gnonto's winner were just beautiful. That is what we're here for in this bloody league. And I tell you what, Justin, you were a big fan of Harry Darling in that moment as well, weren't you?
Honestly, the guy absolutely laying into the linesman. I can't remember which player it was as well, but I think a player got cautioned or booked as well for moaning at the officials, I would assume. But yeah, Harry Darling's giving it the big into the linesman, probably telling him what's for, despite playing onside. Yeah, he was about 3 yards away from his own back line. It was his fault, and he's there. Oh my God, incredible. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. It was absolutely brilliant, and that was a minor highlight in what was just a brilliant game overall. Definitely a game of the season contender. I think that's got to be said. One man in particular stood out for me, though, Justin, summed up perfectly by Gary Weaver on the commentary asking, is there 3 of him on the pitch? Justin, talk to me about Ayo Tanaka. What a player he's turning out to be.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, we praised him a fair bit over the course of the season, but I feel like he's just grown into this role in that Leeds midfield. Just the energy he brings to the team, I think, is the obvious one. But I think he's the perfect midfielder for this system that Daniel Farke wants to deploy. You know, he wants his team to play on the front foot, he wants them to get at it. And I think Tanaka's absolutely ideal for that. Not only is he great at reading the play, he doesn't slow the game down. He wins possession, he distributes the ball very, very quickly. He wants to get the team pushing in the right direction, and he showed that several times today. And he just showed how capable he is at this level. And Daniel Farke was oozing over him after the game as well. And it's just, Tanaka, great purchase in the summer.
Justin, I'm oozing over him as well, because I was just coming away from this game with big hearts in my eyes after this. He's like a Japanese N'Golo Kante, isn't he? He covers so much ground. And look, I think he's been thrust into the team a lot earlier than Daniel Farke planned because of the injuries to Ethan Ampadu and Ilya Gruev. But he's fitted into the Championship seamlessly, hasn't he? It helps when his game is very suited to the physical demands of this league. Never stops running, and he would tackle his own nan if he came to it. But it's no surprise that Leeds fans absolutely love him, because, you know, you're getting 100% from him in every game, and he's having a massive influence on this Leeds team. And he kind of personified this crazy game in a way, because it was so end-to-end at times. And when you want a man who's going to be running end-to-end as well, he is that guy, isn't he? Because he just never stops running. It's unbelievable. And look, Justin, Leeds United, top of the league after this remarkable game. So while the emotions will probably be high for Leeds fans after this fantastic result, where so many times it looked like they were properly up against it. They've come out with the 3 points. But how significant could this result be in the grand scheme of their season?
I mean, the win's the win, isn't it? It's 3 important points. It gets them to top of the league. They take advantage of both Sunderland and Sheffield United dropping points this weekend. But I think it's just the manner of the win, the manner of the performance, the manner of the game. Heads didn't drop at all. You come from behind twice in this game. Swansea find a last-minute equaliser. You keep going. You keep going. And it's that sort of mentality that Daniel Farke has done a really good job of instilling in his side. I don't think we saw that very often last season for Leeds. It's quite staggering considering how good they were and how unlucky they were not to be automatically promoted last season. But I think this is the sort of Farke ball a lot of championship observers, if you like, will expect from Daniel Farke's teams. As I say, both teams will have at it in this game. They got at each other, and as I say, Leeds just didn't drop off. They didn't drop off, and whatever the setback, they responded. It was a hardy, chaotic mentality, and it was a tough game that Leeds edged thanks to that mentality. So, yeah, the win's the win. It's 3 important points, but the manner of the win, that's a significant factor here.
Yeah, Daniel Farke has often been criticised for his game management, and well, I don't think it was perfect here considering they conceded the 3 goals, but the fact that his side didn't just kind of accept the defeat the equaliser rather after Swansea got the 3rd goal, I think is really a sign that this may be a different beast that we're seeing with Leeds now. I mean, we've seen plenty of impressive results from Leeds so far this season, but what's often happened is they've followed it up with a far from convincing performance. Consistency is what we've been asking for from Leeds, isn't it? And when they're getting results like this, these are the results that automatic promotion contenders get. And that's why this result, as chaotic as it was, could be absolutely huge for Leeds in the long run. So you're absolutely right, Justin. It is just 3 points on paper. When you talk about the fact that they did get, a few blows to the face in this one and managed to come out of it with their arms in the air, that's why this really, just from a belief standpoint, could be a big thing for Leeds United, I think.
Yeah, completely agree. I pretty much said it already. It's the way they won the game. It's not letting your heads drop. And I think, a lot of teams potentially in the Championship would have just settled for that draw. But not a team managed by Daniel Farke. And that was the great thing about his Norwich teams, because no matter how blooded they were, no matter how, beaten they were, black eyes and everything in a game, they will keep going. They will get up. And, they won't let the bell ring. They'll just keep chugging along.
Keep swinging. That's all we want. We just want to see you keep swinging. Yeah, Swansea fans will be disappointed about not getting something from this, considering the circumstances, leading twice and getting a 90th minute equaliser. But they have given the best team in the league as much of a game as they have done. So that's definitely a positive, isn't it? And I think they can definitely take away quite a few positives from this one, Justin. One big positive, though, that has obviously come in the lead up to this game is that this is Swansea's first game under their new ownership, because the group headed up by current chairman Andy Coleman has brought out the previous majority owners, with the news announced yesterday on Saturday. Thoroughly enjoyed Swansea's PA system playing I Want to Break Free and Freedom before the game started. Little things like that go a long way with me, Justin. But look at it from this way, Justin. Of course, we've spoken about the game, but this could be a huge weekend for Swansea City going forwards, couldn't it? And hopefully this is a sign of, bright new things to come with them.
Fingers crossed. I think the key thing you've got to sort of understand is, Swansea's ownership wasn't, they've not driven the club into the ground like a Reading or a Derby or a Blackpool of years gone by. But the lack of ambition has been chronic, and I think the reason why the club's in mid-table obscurity is because of the current owners, the lack of ambition, the lack of direction, and that's been a main contributor of them falling away. I think the last 2 managers, Steve Cooper and Russell Martin, I think the old owners held them back. So I think, in terms of showing ambition, I don't think there needs to be a huge splurge of things, but I think ambition, structure, investment into the youth all needs to be re-established, and hopefully the new owners can bring that, because Swansea were team very comfortable in the Premier League. New owners came in, and that wasn't the case. And I think, re-establishing structure, direction, very much needed.
Yeah, that's the magic word here, isn't it? Ambition. That's what, Russell Martin basically left Swansea for Southampton because he was unhappy about the lack of ambition shown by the owners. That was pretty obvious from everyone around the club. And that's ultimately been holding Swansea back. Look, they went stale under the old owners, didn't they? And that's why a change was badly needed. It's been something Swansea fans have been asking for a long time now. And it's finally come. So this is a big, big moment for Swansea. And I think, hopefully, that will mean things can start progressing off the pitch, because I think that, as we were alluding to in the international break, Justin, I think there are signs of positivity coming from Swansea in a long-term view on the pitch. It's just off the pitch where that wasn't being matched. But now, hopefully, that can change with these new owners coming in. I say new owners. It was the chairman from before, so not technically new, but you see what I mean. A new hierarchy at the club, a new age as well, I guess. Let's go to Middlesbrough, Justin, who made it 3 wins from 3 by winning 6-2 away at Oxford. 3-word reviews for Borough. Nick says, it's coming home. Jamie on our Patreon says, 6y red bastards. LD says, so fucking back. Jack says, horny, horny, horny. For Oxford. Paul says, crash, bang, wallop. First of all, Justin, great to know that the second tier curse only applies to you when it comes to backing Middlesbrough.
It's an absolute joke, isn't it? Absolute joke. I think that the worst thing was, in the preview episode, I said, Oxford will give them a game. And it looked like at one point this was going to happen. Oxford were going to give Borough a game, then fucking hell, 6-2. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. To be fair, I don't think Oxford played terribly in this one. But look, these are the facts, Justin. Michael Carrick's side have now scored 15 goals in their last 3 games. It's the first time they've done so since 1947. They've more than doubled their goal tally for the season in these 3 games. And they've also scored more goals in those games than QPR and Swansea have all season. Justin, Middlesbrough, absolutely on fire.
That's an understatement. The middle of the sun at the moment, aren't they? I think the fact that they only scored 14 goals prior to this run of 3 games this season. Scored 14 prior to this run of 3 games. They've literally outscored themselves in the space of trying to work out the minutes. 250 minutes of football, whatever it is, 260. I think the most incredible thing here is they've always created this many chances to score this many goals in games. Maybe 6 flattered them a little bit, but they just haven't been very good at converting. I don't think anyone's unaware of that, but it's always been a case of, when, not if. So many people tipped Emmanuel Atelaf for the Golden Boot, including yourself. They've got the likes of Marcus Forss, Tommy Conway, players who are capable of scoring double figures this season. And then, you factor in the superstar attack of the players like Isaiah Jones, Riley McGree, Vin Azaz, Ben Dokes. There's probably more I'm missing off, but it's all been about finding balance and control, and these are the rewards. Games like this, run of games like this, it's just outstanding.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, Oxford were 1-0 up in the 36th minute.
That's the point where I was like, Oxford are going to give Borough a game here. I'm right on this one.
Yeah, but it was like they poked the bear, and then the bear came out and decided to maul them to death, because they just tore poor Oxford apart from that stage, didn't they? 4 goals in the space of 12 minutes, including a hat-trick for Emmanuel Atelaf, who could have scored more, actually, in this game. It was ridiculous how many times he found himself in a goal-scoring position in this one. George Edmondson missed a great chance as well, so they perhaps could have won this by even more. But look, I can't imagine there are many teams in Championship history who have scored 15 goals or more in a 3-game spell. It's a ridiculous tally. And I know we go on about it a lot, but you're absolutely right, Justin. Middlesbrough were terrible at converting chances earlier in the season. They were playing at a similar level to how they are now. The only difference is they're actually putting the chances away now. And the floodgates are properly opened in quite a dramatic fashion, haven't they? They are well in top gear. Just in one man in particular who is really standing out in a Borough shirt. He is untouchable right now. Finn Azaz. He's got 2 goals and 2 assists in this game alone. It means in Borough's last 6 games, he's got 10 goal contributions. Mm-hmm. Justin, that's insane.
That's insane. Yeah, I mean, what was I saying just before the international break? There's a player there who I think will be in contention for player of the season. It's not an if, he will be in contention for player of the season. I think games like this are just a reminder of his ability. And then you look at his spell at Plymouth for the first half of last season before he went to Borough, the numbers he produced for a team who were okay. They weren't great. They weren't great. They weren't terrible. They were just okay. But he was producing, I think at one point he had the most sort of key passes in the league. So he was creating the most chances for his teammates in the division. And he continued to produce those numbers for Borough last season amidst their inconsistency results-wise. And he's doing the same again this season. This run of games isn't a fluke. He was doing it again as Borough were failing to convert chances and were inconsistent earlier on this season. And I don't think the numbers do him justice either. He's a sensational player to watch. His movement, his control, his technique is all there. It's just a matter of fact that Borough got him for such a low cost. It's an incredible signing. He's an incredible player. And I'm going to look forward to speaking about him for the next 3 or 4 months because I just cannot wait to see what he can continue to produce.
Well, I can understand that because based on the form right now, he's the best player in the Championship, isn't he? You can't really argue with that based off the numbers that I just mentioned a second ago. I mean, I was a big fan of him when he was at Plymouth because he really stood out for me there. And dare I point out, they've not been anywhere near as good going forward since he left in January. But I've been a bit surprised because Borough fans have been a bit critical of him at times this season, which I don't really understand. Maybe he's one of those players where his contributions can go a bit under the radar. That's obviously not the case now when he's scoring and setting up as many goals as he is, though, because he is a phenomenal player, a chance-creating machine. Only Alfie Doherty at Luton has created more chances than him.
And he takes their pieces as well.
Season. Well, so does Finn Azaz. So, it kind of balances out in that way. But look, I'm looking forward to seeing more of him as well, Justin, because he's playing a massive part in Borough's automatic promotion bid, because that's what it is at this stage, isn't it?
That's a good debate to have.
Is it? Is it really a debate at this stage?
I would still have question marks over the defensive record. Don't get me wrong, going forwards they are unreal. But I think the difference between a team chasing top 2 and being in the playoff places is how good your defence is. That being said, Ipswich did trump them last season.
You were saying exactly the same thing about Ipswich last season.
But it's an argument that Ipswich's side does hold true in years gone by in the Championship. But I do think Michael Carrick has established a lot more control this season in possession, and they are giving away a lot less chances than they have done in previous years. So I think it's a case of let's see how the next couple of weeks unfold, and then we can start to make those debates happen.
I will point out, you look at the underlying data, Middlesbrough have actually got the 4th best defence in terms of their XG against. So they've been a bit unfortunate to have conceded as many goals as they have. But, right now they are absolutely frightening, aren't they? And they're 5 points off the top 2. They are the last team you would be wanting to be playing right now, wouldn't they? So who are the unlucky souls to have them next? They've got Blackburn in midweek and then Hull. Oh, God. Speaking of who, Luton got just their 2nd win in 6 by beating Hull 1-0 in El Sacico. 3-word review for Luton. Skeeter on our Patreon says, it ain't pretty. For Hull, Hayden says, sack Tim Volter. Von Slider says, Volter is clueless. Nick says, Volter equals relegation. Big win for Luton, Justin. They weren't great by any means, but wins are so valuable for Rob Edwards right now, and so doesn't matter how they come.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how they come. I think there was an interesting thing Rob Edwards said after the game is he said, if you think back to a couple of years ago when we got promoted, we had quite a few kinds of these performances. People putting their bodies on the line. You have to do that to win football matches. It's not always going to be pretty. It's worth reminding Rob Edwards that's pretty much been the case for large portions of this season. They have not put in good performances. And you're right, this is a big win for Luton. They weren't great by any means. But I'm not sure what's more valuable for Rob Edwards at the moment. Is it a case of getting the 3 points on the board? Yes, it puts distance between them and the bottom 3 if they're looking over the shoulder. But numbers-wise, they haven't really performed all season. They were the 2nd best team for me in this game. Hull were a lot better. They created better chances throughout. they were the more convincing. And again, the goal came from a set piece. So how often did they really open Hull up in this game? Not very often. So for me, the issue comes down to is the performances. The performances just aren't improving at all, and that's the worry. And he's had 2 weeks and a rocket up his arse, I imagine, after that Borough loss. And I think we saw, a performance that wasn't too dissimilar from that.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you on that, Justin. I think it's a win, but Luton, I don't think they could take much encouragement from this because they were pretty poor, really. If they were facing a better team than this very out-of-form Hull side, I think they probably would have lost this because Luton really rode their luck in the second half. So from a results perspective, it's a big one for Rob Edwards. But if you're looking for signs of things turning around for Luton, then I think you've got to keep looking because they were the only team in the bottom half of the table to win this weekend. So fair play for that. That is a big positive. But if you're looking at this performance, this was really not great. But they've managed to squeak a win out of it. The thing that's tended to be the case with Luton recently is they get a good result at Kenilworth Road and then follow it up with a terrible away performance. So they'll be hoping that changes this week with midweek games coming up. They've got 2 away games, Justin. Leeds and Norwich. So, yeah, good luck, Luton, because I think Rob Edwards will be hoping that they can pull something out of their arses there, because if this game was something to go by, then I'm not sure what's going to come from those 2 games. But look, Rob Edwards, he's in a bit more of a comfortable position than he was during the international break, Justin. We can't say the same about Tim Volter. Where does this leave him? They're winless in 8. Just 3 points from a possible 24. Back in the relegation zone once again. That pressure's not easing up anytime soon, is it?
That's it, isn't it? It's hard to justify an argument for Tim Volter, isn't it, because of the results. But if you look at the performance again, it wasn't a poor performance. It was frustrating because, okay, they weren't swashbucklingly brilliant going forwards, but João Pedro hit the post. Chris Bedia had a chance where he really should have scored with a header. And Casey Palmer was half an inch of deflected shot from beating Kaminski, because I think a ball came off Kaminski's hip and over the bar or something. This team is creating a decent amount of chances. It's very clear that it's lacking confidence and quality. Is that down to Tim Volter? I don't think it is. It goes back to previous debates that we had on the recruitment and the timing of recruitment. But that being said, as I say, I understand why Hull fans are getting annoyed, because you're just not winning games. I don't think Tim Volter's capable of winning a game ugly, if that makes sense. Almost in a way how Luton won this game. But if you look at a Gary Rowett team or a Neil Warnock team of old, they can win 1-0 by playing shit. I just don't think this whole team is capable of that, if that makes any sense at all.
No, it does make a lot of sense, Justin. I don't disagree with anything you've said there, really. I think this squad is definitely weaker than the one that ended last season, isn't it? And a prime example of that is João Pedro up front, because, it's not that João Pedro, for anyone wondering, but he missed 2 massive chances. He missed 2 massive chances in this game. I'm really not sure about him as a player. And, you compare it to last season where they had Liam Delap, who's now tearing it up in the Premier League. The whole team of last season, I think, would have definitely beaten Luton in this one, because Luton were there for the taking and they didn't take it. That's completely hypothetical, of course, but I thought Hull were deserving of at least a point in this one, and I don't think that's necessarily down to Tim Volter and his management. Having said that, I don't think that's going to appease the less than impressed Hull fan base, who are just getting more and more irritated. And Tim Volter, of course, doesn't help himself either with little things like not clapping the away fans afterwards. Have you heard why he didn't do it, Justin?
I have, yeah. Was it a bit wet for him?
Yeah, he said it was because he was wet.
See, this is it. Your team can put in good performances and lose games, but if the fans like you, I think you're okay, right? Rob Edwards is a great example of that. This is why this game's such an interesting microcosm. It helps Rob Edwards being incredibly handsome as well. Not that Tim Volter isn't. Everyone's got a type, but if you're saying you are not going to applaud the away fans, because the where the managers are and the away stand, you have to almost get across there to get to the dressing room anyway. Yeah,
it's not much of a diversion, is it?
No, it's literally probably about 15 yards. So there might be something underhand there, and that doesn't help his cause.
No, it certainly doesn't. He's always been a bit spiky from what we've seen of him so far. I mean, Andy Brassel from On the Continent, our European football show at Stack, he did warn us Volta's PR skills left a lot to be desired. And we've certainly found that out on a few occasions now, with him seemingly taking a dig at Hull fans whenever he gets the chance. I would say there's definitely positives to take from this game for Hull, but I would also say I don't think it's going to buy Tim Volta any more time, because I think that's running out. I've got a fair bit of sympathy for him, but it's clear the relationship with the fans is getting towards the point of no return. So that's where we're at with that. They have got Sheffield Wednesday at home in midweek. I think a poor result there might be the end of the road, Justin.
Akonila Colley is a strange owner, isn't he? Because he's not really coming out. The noises aren't really coming out of the club that he's close to being sacked. He obviously had the dreaded vote of confidence a few weeks ago, but at the end of the day, the results just cannot go on. But again, where do Hull go from here? That's an interesting debate to have, or an interesting conversation to have, because the lack of quality in this squad is very apparent, and I think that's the big worry here. It's not necessarily who's going to take charge of the club or the team. It's the lack of quality in it, and that's going to be a problem for any manager.
There's a good one at Strasbourg, I've heard, so maybe they could look at him. It's now time for us to check out how our second-tier bet builder and multiple with SBK got on, which included our Game of the Week, as well as Justin and I's two bankers from Friday. So our bet builder was on Luton v Hull, and a £10 stake was due to return £260. We had Alfie Doherty to be carded. Now, he didn't play because of injury, so this pick would have been voided if you chose it in your bet builder. We had Luton under 14.5 shots. They only had 7 in the end, so that one we nailed. We had Luton to win, another winner, but we also had both teams to score, which really should have happened, but didn't. So no luck on our bet builder there, but onto our multiple, where a £10 stake was due to return £60. We had Blackburn, Middlesbrough and Luton all to win. Now, Luton and Middlesbrough both won, but Blackburn's game was obviously postponed, which means it would have been voided if you did pick it. So do we count that as a win, Justin?
I think so. I do, because our chances do diminish, or odds do diminish. But in my opinion, Blackburn would have won the game. So therefore, I take that as a big win.
I think we'll take it as a win as well. So we're right in form, ladies and gents. By the way, we had a few people asking what the Blackburn postponement means for the scores in the previous show, because obviously we're keeping track of how we do with our predictions all season. We'll just add that result to the scores whenever that game is replayed. That's what we usually do. So Justin's got a game in hand. Everyone remember that. Anyway, we'll be back with our next round of picks in this coming Friday's preview show with SBK. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll be talking about Ahmedhodžić losing his head and a very delayed goal celebration at Watford. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast, and it's now time for us to reveal the winner of our latest edition of Jameson's Weekend Hero. So every single week, we're asking you to nominate a fellow Championship fan that you believe deserves recognition. We've had several celebrated unsung heroes so far here on the Second Tier. We've had, people who have been going to games with their mates through thick or thin on away days, or someone who drives to every single game, no matter how far it is, Justin. And we even recently had someone nominate themselves for getting their kids to support their team. We want to hear these kinds of stories so we can celebrate those unsung heroes across the greatest league in the world. So to nominate your Jameson Weekend Hero from this weekend, send us a voice note now on WhatsApp explaining your nomination. The number is in the show notes. And of course, if we pick you, you'll win a bottle of delicious Jameson to share with your winner. But on to this week's nomination, we've got this message from Joe, who wanted to nominate his 94-year-old granddad, Philip.
Hi, I'd like to nominate my granddad, who I call my grampy, for the Jameson Weekend Hero. I grew up in the southwest, which you probably could not tell from my accent. Clearly, none of it was left behind. I moved out at a fairly young age. But he was a proper Cornishman. He's, full-blooded Cornishman. He'd walk into a room, he'd be like, "Right, handsome, how you doing?" And, some of my earliest memories growing up in Cornwall, and my earliest memories of football, full stop, are him taking me to Plymouth Argyle games when I was about 5-6 years old. I remember early memory. I think they were in a championship at that point, but I remember games against Crewe Alexandra and, Yeovil Town. But I've stayed a lifelong Argyle fan ever since, and every couple of weeks we'll have a phone call. We'll catch up about the latest results. Obviously, it's been less fun on those calls for the past few weeks, but that's how it goes. But no, he's inspired a lifelong passion for football in me. He's inspired a lifelong support of Argyle in me. And, he's not able to go to games anymore due to his age. But I'm sure he'd be grateful to know what he's done for me. And also he does enjoy a good tot of whiskey as well.
Of course he does. Grandad Philip. What a legend, Justin.
Oh, yeah, that's brilliant. Again, it's just the connection, family members give to us through football. Yeah, it's a huge thing, and it's a huge positive thing as well. And one that we've all got to raise a glass to, because it's a wonderful opportunity they give us.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Justin. Is your granddad a Derby fan?
My granddad is a Derby fan. I think he stopped going like in the 90s. So perhaps not as committed as, but he saw the best years. He didn't need to come back. He saw Derby win the title. He saw it. He saw it all. He passed it on through my dad, and my dad passed it on through me. That's what he needs to do.
He didn't need to see the Phil Brown days, did he? No,
God,
that's something that he was better off without. Let's raise a glass, Justin, to Grandad Philip, another legend recognised here on the Jameson's Weekend Hero. A quick swig from me. Delicious as always, Justin, isn't it? And remember, you can nominate your Jameson Weekend Hero right now by sending us a voice note on WhatsApp. The number is in the show notes, so just 60 seconds explaining your nomination, and you'll be in with a chance of winning a bottle of Jameson, just like Joe and his granddad has right here. You must be over 18 to enter, UK only, and T's and C's apply. Let's get back on to some of the action from across the weekend then, and we'll go to Sheffield United, who managed to get a point away at Coventry despite being down to 10 men for the entire second half. 2-2 it finished there. 3-word reviews for Coventry. Sky Blue J says Norman's a shithouse. Luke says Bassett shithouse king. Sky Blue Cal on our Patreon says naughty Norman Bassett. Yeah. Sheffield United's Arnold Ahmedhodžić was sent off at the end of the first half after a brutal choke slam on Coventry's Norman Bassett. What did you think, Justin?
What did I think? I think the red was justified. Before I say anything else, the red card was justified. I think anyone who puts their hands up above the chest on an opposition player, you run the risk of a red card. Doesn't matter how aggressive your action is, you run the risk. Should it have been a red card, though? Yeah, I think considering the context of Norman Bassett igniting the incident, I think maybe the officials could have taken a bit more of a sympathetic view on Ahmedhodžić. But I think all this situation has done, this scenario has done, has unearthed a potential for a shithouse legend this season.
I completely agree, Justin. He's got something about him, hasn't he? Because he clearly set out from the off to rattle Ahmedhodžić, and he did that brilliantly. It is worth pointing out they had a couple of clashes earlier, including one where Bassett elbowed him in the back of the head, which was a bit naughty. But then Bassett said something to him. Ahmedhodžić clearly lost his head, and whenever you raise your hands to someone like that, you're always going to be in trouble.
I will add as well that Bassett did such a good job of mastering the dark arts. I was sat on my sofa going, "Oh, you bastard. You little
utter bastard.
You little bastard." And that's he's done his job. Yeah,
you were saying utter bastard, but at the same time you were saluting him at the same time because he really did nail this. Chris Wilder said afterwards the boy didn't get punched in the face, and he's gone down as if he's been hit by Mike Tyson, because he did make a meal of it.
He sold it.
He really did sell it. You're right, Justin. And ultimately, Ahmedhodžić fell for it, hook, line and sinker, didn't he? Possibly cost his team 2 points. Meanwhile, Bassett, we love a good shit house on the show, Justin, and anyone who winks to his teammates after getting someone sent off, it's little things like that, which I'm like, oh, you bastard, but then still saluting them. What did you think of the game as a whole, Justin?
I thought it was a really good contest. I think even with Sheffield United going down to 10 men, I thought we saw an interesting tactical battle ensue in the second half. That being said, I don't think Sheffield United got into Coventry's half after the interval, after half time. So I think it was a really good game. I thought from a Coventry perspective, what interested me was how late or how long it took Reece Carr to make substitutions to try and change the game and force the game in Coventry's favour. I thought he sat on that too long. And I think if you made those changes a bit earlier, bringing on a bit more pace, bringing on a bit more width, Coventry could have got the 3 points. But unfortunately, I think the timing of this was probably killed it for them. But I thought it was a really good contest. I was really impressed with both teams for different reasons. Tyrese Campbell getting a goal, I was buzzing for him again. And as I say, I thought it was a very good game. A really good indicator again of what the Championship's all about.
Yeah, I think Sheffield United probably would have taken a point at the start of the second half, but I mean they gave a pretty good showing despite being down to 10 men. I mean, it was always going to be difficult holding on to that, and they did well to do it for as long as they did. If Coventry scored earlier, then they would have been delighted with the point. So it's all about perspective, really, isn't it? Ultimately, they have been let down by Ahmedhodžić losing his head. Because if that doesn't happen, they probably would have gone on to win this because they were in a great position before that sending off. Interesting comments from Chris Wilder after the game, Justin. When talking about the Coventry players, he said if they had run around like that for the past 14, 15 games, maybe someone would be in a job still. Ooh,
who's
claws out, Justin.
Who's he talking about? I mean, is he wrong, Chris Wilder? I don't think he is. Obviously, I don't think things are as simple as that, but I think that's the biggest, as big a compliment you can give an opposition manager or former opposition manager, and respect as well. So, hats off to Chris Wilder there, because someone's got to say it, haven't they? Let's be honest, I think we've all been thinking it for a few weeks. The players have let Mark Robins down, and Mark Robins goes and the players all of a sudden have this sort of level of, I wouldn't say fight because it's a very simplistic term to use, but just level of tenacity in games. That's been missing for a while, and they found it, and that took a manager getting sacked, which it's not always a nice thing.
Well, it is worth mentioning Coventry have now come from behind twice in the 2 games they've played since Mark Robins lost his job. So maybe Wilder's onto something. I don't mind this from old Chrissy Wilder. More comments like this, please, because it's great content for us, Justin. What I will say is if they weren't running around under Mark Robins, I'm not sure they're going to do it under Frank Lampard if that does happen. So we'll see. Let's go to Plymouth, where a 96th minute equaliser from Andre Gray saw Argyle draw 2-2 with Watford on Friday night in an extraordinary game at Home Park. 3-word reviews for Plymouth. Matt on our Patreon says, expect the unexpected. Pat says, colour me grey. Jensen says, Andre Gray sexy. This game was a bit mad, wasn't it? Both of Plymouth's goals were worldies, and we'll talk about them in a sec, Justin. But Watford's first was one of the strangest things I've ever seen, or heard, I suppose, in this case. So Fakun Bayo puts Watford ahead, and the Watford fans take ages to celebrate it. I've actually got a clip of it now, Justin. Listen to this if you haven't heard it already, dear listener. It's bizarre.
Bayo is waiting in the middle, and he's forced it home. Watford have made their start count here. A delayed reaction from the Watford fans away to our left.
The Watford fans didn't celebrate for a full 6 seconds after the goal went in.
It's the disbelief that Fakun Bayo scored again, isn't it? It's a real life lag. It's like playing FIFA in the mid 2010s when everyone on the internet was subpar. I don't know what's going on. I'd like to hear from Watford fans in the stand. Actually, why did it take so long for us to understand what was going on?
It's so bizarre. I don't understand at all why it's happened. I've seen some people say it's because the Watford fans want a dodgy fire stick in the away end, and that's what the delays were all about. I've seen some other people say it's because the Watford fans were at the other end of the pitch, but that doesn't explain anything. Plus, Bayo picks up the ball almost immediately after scoring, and from the point where he picks up the ball, there's still about a 4-second gap between that and the fans celebrating. So what did they think was happening? It's such a confusing moment, Justin.
There must have been a wormhole in the pitch or something, like giving the fans a completely different perspective of the game. And as you say, there's surely 1 or 2 fans in that stand who have seen Fakun Bayo pick up the ball and go, what are you fucking doing? Do you know what I mean? Completely unaware that he scored a goal. But honestly, it's such a subtle moment and not massively significant, but probably one of the most bizarre things I've experienced on this podcast, because that amount of time to understand that the ball gone into the back of the net. Your team has scored a goal. It's like VAR without VAR. It's incredible.
It reminded me of the bloody COVID days when a goal was scored and nothing would happen. But the Watford fans were there. It was just so confusing. Maybe they just weren't paying attention, Justin. Maybe they're like me. They all have ADHD and were looking at the sky because they saw a seagull or something like that. It was just a very bizarre moment. And I think you're absolutely right. One of the strangest things I've ever witnessed while covering this podcast. Anyway, that goal was bizarre. What was also bizarre was Andre Gray turning into prime Wayne Rooney for both of Plymouth's goals. One, a brilliant volley after a long pass. The other, a beautiful finish from the corner of the box in the 96th minute. Justin, stunning goals.
Yeah, his catalogue is fantastic. His YouTube highlight reel will be great because obviously he scored that one for QPR a few years ago against Derby. But he's a player who at times will convince me he's got world-class talent. I shit you not. There are moments where I go, bloody hell, is this Hernan Crespo? Because the goals he scores are not befitting of the player he is. And that sounds harsh. It sounds very mean. But if you watch Andre Gray's goals back for Burnley, for Brentford, they're not that. Like, let's be honest, they are not that volley over the shoulder. They are not that absolute screamer. So fair play, Andre, for just reminding us all that you are a footballer, because we can forget that sometimes.
I think Watford fans definitely can, because they must have been watching this thinking, this cannot be the same guy who played for us, because he was pretty shocking at times in a Watford shirt. And just that volley, for me, to fire it into the bottom corner, first time after a long ball like that, is just sublime. When he's running at nearly full pace as well, it's an excellent finish. I think they were comparing it afterwards to Robin van Persie from the Wayne Rooney pass all those years ago, and the comparison's definitely there. It might not be as satisfying because it's rolled along the grounds afterwards, but it's still an unbelievable goal. And Watford fans must have been like, that cannot be Andre Gray. It simply cannot. But yeah, an unbelievable couple of goals from him. And he's scored a few now for Plymouth since joining. So he's turned out to be a pretty decent pickup from them. What did you think of the game itself, Justin? Watford were... they must have left this wondering how they didn't get 3 points here, because they missed loads of great chances, didn't they?
Yeah, I think 9 times out of 10 Watford come away with 3 points. But it's one of those games where if you don't kill the opposition, they're going to come back. And I think obviously the manner of the Plymouth goals, in which both of them were worldies, I think Watford did a good job of shutting them out for large periods of the game. That being said, how good are Plymouth going forward, especially when you've got a half-fit Morgan Whittaker that's come off with injury? That's probably your last talisman on the pitch, if you like. Ballymumba's not in form. He's vastly out of form. There's no Sissoko. So, Whittaker going off, you'd have thought would have handed the game to Watford, but he never really went with the game, never really took control of it from a goals point of view. So, yeah, you leave yourself open if you don't kill the game. And unfortunately, Andre Gray did what every good former player will do. He will remind you that he still exists.
Yeah, and really punish you for that. It's got to be said, Plymouth have certainly developed a habit of somehow getting a result, no matter how bad they play, because that's been a particularly valuable thing for them recently, because I have no idea how they've only lost one of their last 5 games now. Justin, they've been appalling. Against Watford, they got battered, and then Andre Gray scored 2 worldies out of nowhere. Against Derby, just before the international break, they offered next to nothing and scored from a deflected free kick and somehow got a point. They beat Portsmouth, despite Portsmouth being much the better side in that game. And then they drew 3-3 with Preston, despite being 3-0 down, and Preston dominating for 3/4 of the game. It's astounding, really, that they haven't lost more in that time. And this isn't anything to do with agendas against certain managers. I'm just saying what I'm seeing right here. They have been incredibly fortunate recently, and unless they play a lot better, that luck has got to run out eventually, because they cannot keep playing as poorly as they have been in these past few games.
You are right. The performances do have to improve. If they're going to continue to get results and get wins on the board, or get wins on the board, I should say, then performances do have to improve. But if you talk about the character that's been instilled by Wayne Rooney, I think that's a huge positive you can take, and you can grow you can grow form from it. You can grow consistency from that. Don't get me wrong. They do need to shut opposition out because they do leak too many chances. Watford, if they had a striker in form, Fekumbe is a very odd example of a striker in form. They're not really convinced by him, but that's another story. But if they've got players in form in front of goal and they are going to put away their chances, then they come away with that with 3-4 goals and they'd have killed the game. Will Plymouth fancy playing Middlesbrough right now, for example? In Middlesbrough form, they'll get absolutely hammered. So performances do have to improve, but the character is there. The intangibles are there. The team's working for each other. In amongst an injury crisis as well, of key players being missing, they are there and they are fighting. So that's a big plus, but can that last a season? No, not really. That's not sustainable.
It'll be interesting to see if that no-lose run that they've been going on recently continues this week, because they've got 2 away games, and as we all know, Plymouth are pretty hopeless away from home. They've got Norwich and Bristol City, so it's going to be interesting to see how they get on there. Speaking of Bristol City, they lost to Burnley, who made it back-to-back wins by winning 1-0 at Ashton Gate. 3-word review for Burnley. Rupert says tough away win for Bristol City. Phil says bored to defeat. By no means a barnstormer of a game. Not many Burnley games are, if we're being honest. But they did deserve the win in this one. I think that's probably fair to say based on the balance of chances. They probably should have scored more than they did. Although, having said that, how did Bristol City not get a penalty right at the end here, Justin? The ball has hit Josh Brownhill on the hand. And I know the definition of the handball law has changed a lot in recent years. But whatever the definition is, that's handball.
It's always difficult when you're judging handballs because, to be honest, I've seen a couple of incidents this weekend where I'm thinking I have no idea, why the referee's given that. The Junho disallowed goal for Stoke against QPR is a really good example for of the handball rule being very up in the air. But you are right; it has hit Brownhill's hand, and I think there are other referees that may have given that. So, it's difficult to really defend that decision. But, Burnley can take that with a bit of luck because they've kept another clean sheet and they've come away from Ashton Gate. Tough base to go with 3 points. And sometimes you need that luck on your side, especially if you're or can be a very dull side to watch.
I think any referee would have given that, Justin, based on what you were saying there, because I don't know how that has not been given. It's a complete stonewaller. I'm amazed the linesman hasn't given it, because I just cannot come up with any reasoning as to how that isn't a handball. It's a shocking decision, but it must be pointed out, Bristol City have had their own luck with handball decisions in recent weeks. So I suppose these things balance themselves out, but that was an appalling decision from the officials in this game. Justin, look, we criticise Burnley and Scott Parker a lot, and we probably will do for the foreseeable future if they keep playing the way they are, but they have only conceded 6 goals in 16 games so far this season. They've become the first team in Championship history to have conceded fewer than 7 at this stage. And whatever you think of Burnley and Scott Parker, that is undeniably very impressive, isn't it?
It is. I think there are a couple of ways you can look at it. They are pretty bland going forwards. They are a magnolia wall, aren't they? But defensively, they are doing what you need to do to be in promotion contention. They are not giving teams too many chances. And there are a couple of teams or a few teams that come to mind when I think about they were very good at shutting opposition out, but have still been in promotion contention despite never really being convincing. Huddersfield under David Wagner, when they got promoted via the playoffs, that Reading team who lost to Huddersfield in the playoffs under Jaap Stam was another one who were, again, very possession-based, very good at keeping opposition out, but just not very interesting going forward. Middlesbrough under Aitor Karanka defended their way to promotions. So you can bore your way to promotion. It's a sort of compliment, if you like. But the foundations Burnley are building on is their defensive record. It's incredibly impressive. And I'm sure if Scott Parker was called Scott Parker Dice, we'd be lauding it up. But he isn't. He's got a different ideology on football than maybe what he wants to put out.
It's gone very talk sport here all of a sudden, haven't we, with that past 10 seconds? Well, when you have as much of the ball as Burnley do, it's no surprise that they don't concede many goals, but still 6 goals conceded in just 16 games is actually mad, even when they are so possession heavy. I mean, they've only conceded 2 in the last 10 as well, and the underlying data backs it up that they've been particularly impressive recently. I think Maxime Esteve is a bloody good defender, and CJ Egan-Riley really having a breakout season as well, which I think has really gone a bit under the radar actually from loads of people outside of Turf Moor. And whichever way you look at it, this is the bedrock of any hopes of Burnley getting promoted this season, because Lord knows it's not going to come from scoring goals. So fair play, it's very impressive, the defensive record. They definitely need to improve a lot more going forwards, and I think everyone associated with Burnley knows that. But that defensive record, you cannot disgrace it at all. And finally, Justin, we interrupt the usual proceedings here on this podcast to briefly talk about Premier League matters, because Steve Cooper has been sacked by Leicester after just 12 games of the season. Now, the reason I'm bringing this here for us today is because not only are Leicester, of course, fresh out of the Championship, but also because it means Steve Cooper is available to Championship clubs. And Justin, we know Leicester limped over the line really when it came to promotion after dominating for most of last season. But with that in mind, what have you thought of how they've taken to the Premier League in the past 6 months?
Yeah, they're missing Enzo Maresca, aren't they? I think, firstly, this highlights the quality of Maresca and how good of a job he did in the Championship last season. Almost as remarkable as me ranking him 20th in my managerial rankings last season. But it just highlights the gulf, quite significantly. And I think, a team like Leicester achieving what they achieved last season in the Championship, at times, probably for 2/3 of the season, looking like they were going to absolutely blitz Reading's 106 record before tailing off towards the end of the campaign. And then struggling in the Championship, in the Premier League now, it does highlight that gulf a little bit. The squad's not changed a lot, but they have lost a couple of key players like Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, who's a match winner, isn't he? So that's a difficult thing for them. And if they come down into the Championship again, it wouldn't be a surprise. But as I say, I think the main thing, and probably the worry from a lot of outsiders, would be the gulf between the Premier League and Championship. It's huge. Financially, it's huge. If you can't compete, then it's going to be tricky making a name for yourself. If you're like Ipswich and Southampton also struggling.
Yeah, but it's looking quite likely right now that it will be those three in the relegation zone come the end of the season. Ipswich are doing a very good job of things right now, but I mean, Southampton have very much flattered to deceive so far, haven't they? To be fair with Leicester, I think they've actually done a bit better than expected, considering they're currently 16th and had a summer where their squad wasn't much better than it was in the Championship and lost their manager. I think they would have taken 16th at this stage, which is why I'm a bit surprised that Steve Cooper's gone. But, it seems by most accounts that the Leicester hierarchy weren't expecting to lose Enzo Maresca, and then Steve Cooper was always starting on the back foot because of his connections to Forest. So considering all the hard work they put in to get out of the Championship, everything might be completely undone by the events that happen over the summer. That's how football works sometimes, isn't it? And Leicester are certainly finding that out. And I mean, the gulf between the Premier League and the Championship's a discussion for another day, just in which we certainly will have at some point in the coming weeks. But it seems almost certain that Steve Cooper's next job will be in the Championship. Any club without a manager in the near future, or maybe now, Justin, must surely put him at the top of their list, mustn't they?
Well, surely, yes. I mean, it might take a few weeks out or even a bit longer, because the time between the Forest and Leicester job wasn't vastly big, was it? It was a matter of months. But if I was at Coventry, if I was ducking at Coventry, I'd certainly be asking a question or getting in touch with an agent, saying if he fancies it.
Being serious, I'd be right on the phone right now. I'd be like, "Sorry, I know it's a bit soon, Steve, but are you interested?" Because I mean, bloody Frank Lampard or Steve Cooper.
Oh,
come on now,
yeah.
Coventry. This is your man. He'd be perfect for the job in my eyes, Justin. Plus, of course, Coventry and Leicester are rivals. Why not go the whole hog and really boil some piss by going to Coventry down the road? It'd be fun. It'd be the proper win-win situation for Steve Cooper, I think. In all seriousness, Coventry wants someone who can make them take that next step, don't they? That's the main reason why they've got rid of Mark Robbins in my eyes. And I doubt there's really anyone they can realistically get better than this season than him. But if it's not them, then he'll definitely go somewhere, because I think last season he was holding out for a Premier League job. Now he's had that and it's not worked out. He should be more open to a Championship job, and it'll be a big statement for whoever gets him in. Don't see why Coventry wouldn't consider it, Justin.
It's got to be the first number they call. That being said, it depends how advanced the talks are with Frank Lampard, doesn't it? But
forget Frank Lampard. Flipping egg. I mean, serious. I don't care if he's writing down his signature on the paper right now. I'd bloody drop kick the pen out of his hands.
Just kick the pen out of his hands. Hold on, Frank. Fucking hell. Calm down. Just need to make a call. Frank. 1 second. But you're absolutely right. I think you've got to be jumping at Steve Cooper. He ticks all the boxes. He improves players. He can work with youngsters. He showed at Forest that he can work with what he's got, because the Marianakis at Forest was an absolute chaotic owner. You don't get much of a hotbed than that. And he's worked in amongst it and thrived. He perhaps maybe unlucky to lose his job last season at Forest, but that being said, you look at the job Nuno Espirito Santo is doing now, you don't really think that. But Steve Cooper is a manager who deserves a proper opportunity. Difficult job at Swansea, difficult job at Forest, difficult job at Leicester. Coventry is a nice job compared to those three.
And I think the other thing I'd say as well is Coventry fans are obviously very sore after losing Mark Robins. But I think getting someone in with Steve Cooper and his profile, I think would quickly make fans go, okay, I can understand why you've done this now. Frank Lampard, complete opposite. Just take any opportunity we can get to slack off Lampard on this podcast, don't we? Justin, let's go to the polls. This is the part of the show where we give the listeners 3 questions on Twitter, because we want to get their thoughts on everything to do with the Championship. So the first question we asked was this. This is interesting, Justin. Which of these teams is the most likely to finish in the top 2 this season? Burnley, Middlesbrough, Sunderland?
I'll go Middlesbrough.
Ooh, see, he's completely gone back on everything you were saying earlier in the show.
No, I'm not. It's just compared to Burnley and Sunderland, it's very difficult to make a case like that.
I would probably go Middlesbrough, but that's because their stock is very high right now. I would definitely go Sunderland over Burnley, for me personally. 36% of people said Sunderland, 33% said Middlesbrough, 31% said Burnley. So it's bloody tight in that particular poll. Which of these out-of-work managers would you most want at your club, Justin? Steve Cooper, Frank Lampard, Mark Robins, or Ruud van Nistelrooy?
Steve Cooper.
I mean, Steve Cooper's the obvious answer for me as well, but he's come third in this poll, Justin. 44% of people said Mark Robins, 29% said Ruud van Nistelrooy, 23% said Steve Cooper. Poor Frankie Lamps has got 4%. Well, I think one part of that was pretty expected. Finally, what's the best part of the UK? North, Midlands, or South?
I've got to say the Midlands.
Absolutely. East Midlands till I die, baby.
We could create a turf war here with this.
That's what I was trying to do just when I started this poll. 56% of people said the North, 24% said the South, 20% said the Midlands. I'm counting Wales in the Midlands, by the way. just to try and get the turf war really buzzing. But that's been the polls, ladies and gents. And Patreon subscribers, don't go anywhere, because we've got the extended edition of the weekend show coming up, which we like to call Zamora Time. We'll be talking about a painful end to a game for Sunderland, QPR's quest for a win, and Man City in the Championship. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, sign up to get Zamora Time every single Sunday. Head over to patreon.com/second tier. Link is in the description of this episode. But that's just about it for us here on the second tier this weekend. We'll be back again on Thursday to talk about all the midweek action across the Championship. So we look forward to seeing you then for that. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.